afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. According to the economic impact of travel and tourism in Pennsylvania, there are over 452,000 tourism-related jobs in the Commonwealth. In York County, there are over 7,000. Today's speakers will be educating thousands of hospitality students right here in our community. The injection of these graduates into our workforce will improve the quality of York County's hospitality industry and the economic benefits that it generates. Our first speaker is Dr. Dominic DelliCarpini. He has earned 3 English degrees in the Keystone State, 1 at the University of Pennsylvania and 2 from Penn State. Dr. DelliCarpini is Dean of Academic Affairs at York College. We all know the value of communication, especially writing in business, and Dr. DelliCarpini has dedicated his career to ensuring that students are equipped to successfully communicate in their careers. Previously, he served for 13 years as York College's writing program director. In that capacity, he developed 1 major that subsequently turned into 100 majors, so that's quite impressive. Dominic serves York College in many roles, including president of the Academic Senate. His influence goes well beyond York College, working with many national organizations. For example, he currently serves as one of 4 national officers on the Conference of College Composition and Communication, and that is the professional organization for college writing teachers. Dominic has authored several books, one of which caught my eye as complimentary to our work here at Rotary, and that is titled Composing a Life's Work, Writing, Citizenship, and Your Occupation. Dominic also taught high school English for 8 years in Philadelphia. He owned and operated a cafe and bakery at the New Jersey Shore for 10 years and a small clothing retail outlet for 4 years. His 4 children are pursuing various careers from public relations to neuroscience to video production and baking. Joining Dr. DelliCarpini is Dr. John Hughes. Dr. Hughes joined York College last July as director of their new hospitality management program and as associate professor. Dr. Hughes graduated from Florida International University School of Hospitality Management. He earned a master's from Farley Dickinson and a doctoral from Columbia University. Prior to leading the new hospitality program at York College, Dr. Hughes served as associate director and professor of Farley Dickinson University's International School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. I understand they're soon to be rated by the new School of Hospitality Management at York College. There's some friendly competition going on there. John brings to York College not just his academic background, but 25 years of domestic and international hospitality industry experience. Most recently, he served for 12 years as VP for Carnival Hotels and Casinos of Miami, Florida, where he was responsible for the operations and asset management of up to 40 hotels and resorts here in the U.S., the Caribbean, and South America. John also served as director for the Mariner Corporation of Texas, which owned and operated 30 Marriott and Hilton hotels across the U.S. John serves on the advisory board of many institutions, and he also has 4 children. We will hear from both gentlemen today. Please join me in a warm Rotary welcome for Dr. Dominic DelliCarpini and Dr. John Hughes.
I am a college professor, so I brought a shovel with me. I do want to thank all of you for hosting your college 2 weeks in a row. I know that was a lot to ask. I want to start today, though, by mentioning that the last item on my resume there, having run a cafe and bakery, is part of what I'll be talking about today. I won't be talking directly about our hospitality major, more about how my work in hospitality in that industry and working with John Hughes has led to my philosophy of how I can run the academic programs at college. Start off by saying that actually there is a real connection between the motto of our college and the work of the Rotary Club. You'll notice on this next slide that the premises which I took from your materials of the Rotary Club: service about self, acquaintance as an opportunity for service, high ethical standards and dignity of all professions, the ideal of service in personal, business, and community life, and a fellowship of business and professional purpose in the ideal of service is, I think, what we should be aspiring to at your college as well, and I hope what we are indeed aspiring to at your college. Our premises at your college, and my premises personally as Dean of Academic Affairs, is that true education is transformational, not transactional. We don't just pass along information, we transform lives. That transformational education is an act of service. We do this job not because we're interested in ourselves, not because we're interested in making a living, although that is nice as well, but we do this job because it is an act of service to our community. That education has a whole lot to learn from the hospitality sector, and I'll talk about that today, and that the York College mission is committed to this model of hospitality and service, and I hope to help you see how important this is to York College and to all our professors and our students. Most importantly, though, at the end of our remarks, we want to have a conversation with you, and this is something I'd like you to think about as you listen to my remarks and John's, is that we want you to think about your own experiences with education and educators in the present or in the past. I want you to think about what models for education that you believe can reform what we do, because we are an industry in crisis, as I'll talk about in a few minutes. And how can higher education and organizations like the Rotary Club work together to serve our students? And that's a conversation that we won't finish in 15 minutes of question and answer at the end, but I hope we will start at least in that time period. So I'll begin by telling you three stories. The first will be about my grandfather's shovel, which you see in front of me. A story about my father's diploma, which is to my left, and I'll show you in a minute. And then at the end, talk about my days in Wildwood, running this bakery, and the importance of that in my career and the work I did afterward. I'll start off by talking a little bit about my grandfather's shovel. This shovel was his when he worked for the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Depression. He came to this country right before the Depression began, and during that time period, worked for the Civilian Conservation Corps, which, as you know, planted 3 billion trees in the United States. It was the beginning of his planting other seeds, though, to teach for his family. And it was his job to come to this country because although we were in depression, his life was worse in Italy. My family was a family of shepherds. There was little work and little food for them. And when he came to this country, he came like many immigrants at the time period. Came first, brought one son after another after him, and finally his wife, who stayed back in Italy for 10 years, taking care of the children. And he did, by that act of service, build a family here. The second story is of my dad's diploma, something I found after he passed away about 11 years ago. His diploma is from a garment cutting school in New York. My father was in the clothing industry. He began by working as a pattern cutter in the sweatshops in New York, worked there for many years, worked his way up, and eventually became vice president in charge of manufacturing for Jones of New York, a large clothing company. He did that with a 6th grade education. This diploma that he had, though, I'm sure was very important to him, though he never showed it to us. Instead, what he did was instill on myself and my 4 siblings the love of education. He spoke broken English to the day he died. He asked me to do much of his writing for him, which is how I became a writing instructor, I believe. When he needed an important letter written, he came to me to write it. And it instilled in me the value of education and how important that was. So a man with a 6th grade education, had 5 children, 4 of whom have doctorates. That's what education does. That's what education can do. That's the transformation of education. To light that fire of education and then pass the torch on to children. The problem is we're not sure if that's doing that anymore. And I'll be completely frank with you. This line up on the PowerPoint slide that we are in a true educational emergency, a line from one of the books I'll reference in a minute, is absolutely something we need to be concerned about. This set of educational emergencies began years ago. You may remember this famous Newsweek story called Why Johnny Can't Write. And this quote from it, willy-nilly, the U.S. educational system is spawning a generation of semi-literates, from Newsweek in December 1975. That drumbeat of problems with education continued, with the Nation at Risk report under the Reagan administration, which had in it this line, which has always struck me: if an unfriendly power had attempted to impose upon America the mediocre educational performance that exists today, we might have viewed it as an act of war. In 2011, this book, Academically Adrift, that some of you may have heard about, raised questions about the quality of higher education. Soon after that, and actually just last week, we saw this story in the Chronicle of Higher Education, which headlines, Americans value higher education, but question its quality, survey finds. From that and from some of these other books that are out there, we see a series of headlines. 45% of students don't learn much in college. Is college a waste of money? And then two other books recently published, one by Andrew Lebanco, the other one called We're Losing Our Minds, with both of which describe the limited learning that takes place in colleges. And finally, from the New York Review of Books very recently, this headline, Can Colleges Be Saved? We need to both take these headlines from the media with a grain of salt and take them very, very seriously. People are questioning the quality of education. I'm here because of education. My father's sacrifice, my grandfather's sacrifice. Education needs to be transformational. The question is, are colleges doing their job as they should? That survey that I just referenced had these lines in it: the demand for post-secondary education is as high or higher than it ever has been, but they're asking for something very different from what we've done in the past. And I actually think what they're asking for is something very different from what we've done in the very recent past. And that is to transform from a college model to a university model in which it's the faculty and research that take center stage as opposed to student learning. And at your college, we are a teaching institution, and we do not believe in that philosophy. When we looked at that survey as well, the next question is, where is the value? Well, 3/4 of respondents said the college is unaffordable, which is a value proposition problem, and more than half said the quality of higher education is the same or worse than in the past. So it's unaffordable, we're paying a lot, and it's not as worth it as it used to be. Those of you who run businesses know that's not a sustainable situation. So let me return to one last story before I turn this over to John. The story of my Wildwood days. When I was in England recently, I was walking around the park, and two children were running around with their mother, one of their mothers, and one ran over and said, "Can David stay over at night with me tonight?" And Mom said, "Sure, that's just fine. Go ahead, we'll pack up the stuff and come over." And they hugged each other, and one of them yelled, "This is the best day ever!" And it was just a wonderful moment that I think I'll never forget. But when I ran my bakery at the shore for 10 years, I did this while I was teaching in the high schools. I went to the shore to earn a living because I was teaching in the Catholic high schools, making $16,000 a year, and made more than 10 weeks than I did in the rest of the 40 weeks. But the question, I started off by wanting to sell donuts, to sell bakery items, to make some money. Then I realized every year, and this is how I learned about the hospitality industry, every year, the same families would come down, and they'd come down on the same weekend. They'd come to my bakery, and they'd come with their families, and sometimes it was the only time that the fathers could spend 2 weeks sustained with their children, which both was wonderful and scary for them, I think. But they came to the bakery as one of their regular parts of their vacation. And so I came to learn in the first couple of years that I wasn't just serving donuts, I was really serving these families. That the moments that they were having together in my cafe were moments that they would remember later. They'd talk about later. Remember when we went to Sticky Fingers Cafe. Remember when we shared those moments together. And that's what hospitality is about, and it's not all that unlike what we want for the students in our colleges. Think about, again, I ask you to think about your educational experiences. You may remember certain professors, you may remember certain parties, but you probably remember some moments that were very special, that were formative in your life. And that's something we need to do intentionally as colleges. This is not transactional. We're not just passing along information to students. We need to transform them. And I think what I love about your college in my 16 years there is I believe our professors believe in that mission. Not every one of them, but most of them. And I think our students believe in that mission. Okay, not all of them, but most of them. So finally, I'll go back to that survey one last time and say that when the survey noted, and we'll go from the graph down to the actual points that I want to raise here, when asked about education, about 75% of those surveyed agreed or strongly agreed that traditional colleges provide a high-quality education. Less than 60% said that about community colleges, and less than 35% for online colleges. Online education is a real competitor of ours now. For-profit institutions are a real competitor of ours now. But the public knows that traditional residential education, like we provide here at college, is still that transformative experience. They still see most of the value there. I'll close with this quotation from James Madison. A popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power of knowledge, the power that knowledge gives. And there could not be more at stake than the importance of higher education and the intention of higher education. And I look forward, I'll introduce John Hughes to you now, and we'll have a few words as well, but I look forward to hearing from you now or later about how we can make higher education better. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, I'm John Hughes. It's nice to be here with you all today. President Kleinens, board members, thanks for inviting us to share. We're very, very privileged to do so. My compliments to Rick Cunningham and the staff here at the historic Yorktown Hotel. It's good to be here at your house, Rick. I don't know if you're here, I hope so. If not, compliments to the staff and Rick. Last week, Dominic asked if I'd be interested in sharing some reflections with the Rotary Club. He said, with the highest level of compassion, you will have 10 minutes to reflect on your experience in the hospitality business and in higher education, the service and connections. I thought this was funny because really professors are not known for brevity, as some of you may recall. Today I'd like to focus on the connections between service and leadership. Please note the following connections, if you will. The Rotary Club is a service organization. The hospitality business is a service enterprise, and higher education is a service institution. Our service is providing teaching and learning to people that hopefully will apply learning in the workforce and in their other vocations and interests. Dominic, your reflections turn my thoughts to a quip from the Pulitzer Prize-winning humorist Dave Barry, a former Florida friend. He wrote, "I believe that we parents must encourage our children to become educated so they can get into a good college that we cannot afford." Now, I can relate to this because, as Dan mentioned, I have 4 children myself and I'm broke. So I've come to higher education to make money. In his reflections, Dominic emphasized the crisis in higher education. And I want to share something with you. The National Center for Public Policy and Higher Education suggests that over the past 25 years, and this is a staggering quote for me anyway, over the past 25 years, average college tuition and fees have risen by 440%, more than 4 times the rate of inflation, and almost twice the rate of medical care. Consumers who have questioned whether it is worth spending $1,000 a square foot for a home are now asking whether it is worth spending $1,000 a week to send their kids to college. There is a growing sense among the public that higher education might be overpriced and under-delivered. In my brief remarks today, I'll attempt to make the case that leaders in higher education can address this national crisis of under-delivering by adopting a leadership approach that has proven effective in hospitality and service businesses. Consider this reflection from the business philosopher Max Dupree, the author of Leadership is an Art. Max wrote, "The first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. In between, the leader is a servant." I developed my understanding of service, hospitality industry leadership from studying great servant leaders such as Herb Kelleher, the former chairperson of Southwest Airlines, and from Horst Schultz, the former president and CEO of Ritz-Carlton Hotels. Both very, very successful institutions. Interestingly, Southwest Airlines has the lowest price and the highest quality rating out there, and the Ritz-Carlton is on the other end of the spectrum with a great product and a good price too for the value. Allow me to quickly illustrate on the screen the lesson I learned from Kelleher and Schultz. It will be a brief lesson. A leader is responsible for developing a service culture. You can't read that. I'm going to talk to you about it. Okay? This is the leader's job to create a service culture in a service enterprise, and education is a service enterprise. One way of doing that is by having everyone intensely focus on the quality of the experience perceived by the consumer. In our case, the consumer is the student. Dominic was hitting on something that Carl Albrecht, a famous business philosopher, once called moments of truth. Moments of truth are those moments that we experience when we're here at the Yorktown or we're in a college classroom where you perceive the quality of an experience or service. And we all have those. And just think about the leadership and management challenge involved with that in the hospitality and the higher education business. It is impossible for leaders to be at every moment of truth. It's impossible. People are consuming food in this hotel in a number of different places, occupying the bedrooms, in the lobby, everywhere. And the same in colleges and universities. And so the leader must be a servant leader. Managing moments of truth is what we do as leaders in institutions, what we should do. You have to create a culture to do that. It doesn't happen automatically. You can't see the next slide. If you could shoot a couple slides down, Dominic. Here we have a pyramid of a traditional organizational structure. And if you'll consider this for a second, usually the mission statements are a way to create a service culture. At Southwest Airlines and at Ritz-Carlton, they use mission statements and symbols like this to illustrate their priorities. In the mission statements of both of the companies, they basically include a mission towards the paying customer, but also the employee. The leaders view employees as customers, for without the employees, there would be no customer. So a leader serving employees, helping employees learn and to develop their trade, ultimately results in success. The philosophy of these two great institutions. And I try to practice at school. So the next slide, I'm sorry, Dominic, can we go in reverse there? I'm going to fire this guy who keeps it up. This is what is known as the service-oriented organization, flipping the triangle. It basically illustrates, and Southwest Airlines and Ritz-Carlton use this, along with their mission statements, as statements to their employees about the culture, that you can't do your job unless your leader gives you the tools to do it effectively. Okay. So, the business leaders I cite deliver moments of truth through trusting and supportive relationships they build with their employees. Dominic does this at the school in a number of different ways. Dominic can't be in every classroom. He is the chief learning officer of our college. But he has to help us create moments of truth in the classroom. Date line, 2012. The phone rings in Madison, New Jersey. President George Waldner invites me to consider the possibility of creating a hospitality management program at York College. Interestingly, and as it turns out, George is also a hospitality person, having helped his mom run their family resort on the New Jersey shore. Next revelation, George introduces me to my boss, Dominic. And then I learned Dominic is also a hospitality person, having operated his own bakery. Now I'm beginning to like this New Jersey thing, because I work there, I grew up there, and I'm also a Philadelphian, and I come from an immigrant family, Irish people, and by the way, I'd be happy to carry that back. My family were servants. We believed in serving the community and in business. I was really drawn to York College after meeting both of these gentlemen for the reason that I sensed that they were servant leaders, and that they were working hard to build an institution here in this community, an important institution, that helped students learn in the classroom effectively and then apply their learning in the community and throughout the world. During one of my visits, George took me on a tour. I was struck by the new construction, and there's a lot of it there at the college, and the impressive physical plan of the college. I decided to ask George what he was most proud of at York College, Pennsylvania. Guess what he said? The faculty. Not the buildings, not the infrastructure, none of that. The faculty. So you might ask, what did I discover when I've been here since July? What did I discover after arriving here in York College, Pennsylvania? Everything that George and Dominic mentioned to me was true at this college. Let me share some of the evidence that supports this claim. The college has an entity known as the Center for Teaching and Learning. That's a moment of truth for me. I work in a classroom. I have a degree in education and learning. But anybody that's tried this for a living knows that it's not something you learn once and you don't practice and learn more about to try to do a better job. If you really care, you try to keep improving yourself. And Dominic makes this possible, and faculty engage in this, because the priority of the school is to help people learn. The focus is clear. This is our product and our service. Another piece of evidence is the college is committed to offering an affordable education, with tuition approximately 50% less than that of comparable colleges and equivalent to state institutions. And this is a private college. Another piece of evidence, the college is focused on employment upon graduation. A recent alumni poll reveals that an 89% employment rate within 1 year of graduation for York College graduates. Another piece of evidence, the college is ranked among 198 national best buys in higher education by Americans. Not bad, since there are over 5,000 four-year colleges in the United States. Right here in York. The college is ranked among the best colleges in the North by U.S. News and World Report, and the college is included in Princeton Review's Northeastern College Summary. The college is also ranked among the top 10 best valued private colleges by parents and colleges.com. To sum it up, lower tuition, very high quality, moments of truth in the classroom. In teaching and learning, employed graduates and faculty that are paid in the top tier of their peer group. That's not bad. Southwest Airlines has the lowest prices and the same union relationships and labor relationships that all the others do. And that airline has been consecutively profitable for almost 40 years, and it is the only one. Now that's the result of servant leadership. leaders serving people that are serving. I submit to you that leaders in higher education might address the so-called crisis by adopting servant leader practice from the hospitality and sector and service organizations such as Rotary and York College, Pennsylvania. Thanks. I appreciate it very much. Nice to be here with you today. Happy to take any questions.
The question was how much of an effect that the government-imposed regulations have had upon the cost of education. From our standpoint at your college, being a private institution, it does not have a large effect upon us, but it does affect our competitors and therefore us indirectly. So this year, for example, in the governor's budget, the fact that colleges are being asked to keep their tuition at below CPI and any kind of increase in tuition does affect the students that are coming to your college. But we are dependent upon our students getting state subsidies and federal money to be able to come to the college as well. So it has not had an adverse effect upon us. But I do believe that because we have a peer review process at our colleges and we are self-governing, unlike colleges in Europe, that has actually left a great degree of freedom for us to run our colleges. Thank you.
If anybody knows of anybody that's interested in joining a great hospitality program, John Hughes is the name. I work at York College. Please send them our way. We'll take good care of them.
Thank you very much.